Have you been thinking about leaving New York and relocating to Palm Beach County? I can tell you a lot about it, because I did it. So today I want to go through some of the questions that I'm asked a lot, and some of the questions that I had when I moved down here. Things about taxes and schools and restaurants and social life and what you do in general and where everything is and what it's really like to live down here. So this video is really going to be for anybody who's living in the Northeast. Whether you're from my home state of Massachusetts, New York State, the second state I lived in, New Jersey, where my wife is from, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Look, you're all gonna move here eventually anyway. You might as well do it sooner rather than later. All right, so the first thing people always ask me about, how can you stand the hot weather? Can you live down there in the heat? The answer is yes, absolutely you can. Look, let's get this out of the way first. You do not have 4 seasons down here. We kind of have 2 seasons. We have a mild season, which lasts a little bit less than half a year. During the dead of winter, it will go down to 40, 50 degrees for a little bit of stretch of time there. If you miss that cold weather, that should be enough to remind you that you don't want to live in it anymore. And then the summertime is going to get hot. Now, use hot as a relative term. I spent several summers in Manhattan, and I spent a lot of time on the subway platforms in Manhattan. Now that's hot. That's like 200 degrees on those platforms. It's not that hot down here compared to that. So, look, all joking aside, I'm down here now 17 years, I think. My blood is definitely thinned. I have no interest in going into the cold. I don't want to do that. I shake and shiver when I get near the cold now. You just kind of adapt to it, and it doesn't become that big of a deal, honestly. Don't let that hold you back. Next thing I get asked about all the time is cost of living. So I want to tell you a little story. Now, almost 20 years ago, I was living and working in Manhattan. My employer needed somebody to move down to Miami. They shipped me down here in January when there was slush on the ground in Manhattan, and then they put my W-2 of New York City and Florida next to each other. And I saw how much money I was going to save, and that was about all they had to show me. And I was on a flight about 2 weeks later and moved down here, and that's how I got down to South Florida. So, yes, we do have no state income tax. We don't have any local taxes. This shouldn't be shocking to anybody watching this. In terms of housing, there's a broad array of types of housing. I think when you make the pound for pound comparisons, people are sometimes surprised at how expensive homes are down here in Palm Beach County area. There are more expensive areas and less expensive areas, just like there are anywhere else, right? So you can find something within a budget for the most part, depending on what your budget is, of course. But I think sometimes people are surprised at how widely the prices can vary. And I think years ago, people really thought they got a lot for their money in Florida. Now I think people look at it and say, it's not that much different than the type of housing that I have up in the area that I'm moving from in the Northeast. So the equation's changed a little bit. I do think what is different is this. The years of construction are going to be much more recent down here than they are in the Northeast. And you don't have a lot of the problems of the homes built in the 1800s down here that you have up there. So there is that to kind of factor into it. I know passingly from talking to other members of our family that the cost of childcare and putting my daughter into different daycares or camps seems to be less expensive down here than it is in the Northeast. Food, I was just back in Massachusetts. I can tell you, groceries are cheaper down here. I know those things are anecdotal, but I get asked about them, so I'm letting you know. So I get asked about property taxes all the time and how they work down here. There's a couple of different discussions that we have to have. The first is, are you going to occupy the home on a full-time basis, otherwise known as your homestead? If you are, we have a homestead exemption, which caps the amount of money that your home can rise in value each year, the taxable value. If you're not going to live down here and this is a second home, it goes uncapped. So that's a separate discussion. I'm going to assume if you're watching this, you're relocating and you want to know what your costs are going to look like once you're here. So I have homestead exemption on my house. We pay 1.6% of our property's assessed value as an annual tax. So I think if you're just doing back of a napkin calculations, I usually tell people to use 1.75% of their purchase price just to be real safe. But personally, I pay 1.6%. And so I think that'll kind of help you when you're budgeting. Next up is jobs. Look, most people that I work with that are relocating here for a couple of reasons. One, retirement. Two, their employer is moving to the state of Florida and it's going to be based out of the state of Florida, likely for tax reasons, and the employees are moving down. So the employee is moving with a job already. I often get people that can work remote. What I don't really get is somebody that's coming here that's unemployed and says, I'm going to move to Florida and then I'm going to find a job. So I'm not really going to speak to that because, that's probably not the best idea. But look, I think that there are plenty of job prospects out there in the state of Florida. We tend to have very low unemployment. Here's where I want to take the discussion is, if you're looking for the most amount of jobs in Palm Beach County, you're likely going to be talking about being in West Palm Beach. West Palm Beach is growing dramatically, and it's adding a lot of, look, they just built a bunch of new office towers that have to get filled, and they are getting filled with a lot of really great employers. So I think the job prospects around here, especially because of what's going on in downtown West Palm Beach, it's just a force multiplier. It's getting better by the day, honestly. Next up is going to be transportation. By transportation, I mean people ask me, do I need to have a car if I move to Palm Beach County? Oh God, yes. Yeah, you can't get away. No way can you get away without that down here. We don't have a subway system. That's just, the water table is like 3 feet below the ground. That's not really possible. Look, I don't think you could just rely on Ubers and your bicycle, and especially because in the summertime when we get torrential rains, if you were caught on your bike in one of those, man, whew, that'd be rough. You need a car if you're moving down here. Budget for that. You're going to need it. Depending on where you live, your insurance cost is going to be higher or lower depending on the zip code. Just like anywhere else in the country, it's no real difference. But once again, you need a car if you're moving here. All right, culture and lifestyle. Man, this is a big one, and this is a broad topic. The lifestyle down here is more laid back. It is more flip-flops and jeans and shorts, and you day drink instead of night drink. I think there's a phenomenal sense of community. Now, I live in Jupiter. I live in Jupiter Farms. I go to the grocery store, I'm gonna know 3 or 4 people that are there. People expect you to ask, how are you doing? How was your day? It's slower. As somebody told me when I first moved down here, the farther north you go in Florida, the more southern you get. I think that's largely true. I enjoy the friendliness and the slower pace. When we see people that are either on vacation from the Northeast or just moved here, they're often frustrated, like with wait staff and things like that, because things you're not rushed. And I like that. You may not, but I want to be perfectly transparent on the fact that it is going to be a difference. You are going to feel a difference down here. Some pockets may be more amenable to you. If you want more of that nightlife and faster action, you might want to look at Fort Lauderdale. I don't recommend it, but you might want to look at Miami. That's a whole different beast. So look, there's something for everybody down here, but if we talk, just let me know what it is that you're looking for, because Boca is different than Delray, is different than West Palm, is different than Jupiter, right? Everybody just kind of has, every neighborhood, every area just has a bit of a different feel and a different way that people go about living in those areas. All right, we got to cut to my backyard here. I realized I did this whole next section and I ignored probably the most important thing, which is the food. You know, everyone's always asking about restaurants down here, and you know, will you miss restaurants in the Northeast and this and that? Look, there's a ton of good choices for food down here. I think, especially recently, like a lot of the really good restaurants are popping up in West Palm Beach. You know, Pink Steak, we love going to eat there. It's just a really cool place. The Cafe Sapori, which is right off Southern Boulevard, it's great Italian. I don't really think that you have any kind of shortage for Italian food if you move here versus the Northeast. The steak, I mean, everything they have up in the Northeast, everybody's pretty much got a restaurant down here now for it. And a lot of the old staples in the Northeast are even opening up outposts down here, you know. They're kind of popping up everywhere. If you want seafood, I mean, you know, kind of known for it down here. So I really don't think there's any trail off on the food. Some people ask about, you know, is the nightlife any different? There are some differences in that you don't really go out late at night here. Like, you know, in Manhattan, we'd have like, you know, 10 o'clock reservations, which is crazy. But down here, you know, I think everybody starts to drink during the day. On the weekends, you're kind of out at noon, 1 o'clock. By 4 o'clock, you're home and done and asleep by 5 or 6. That's more the, you know, the feel down here. It's more laid back. So that's, I guess, a cultural difference between living in the Northeast and down here. And I forgot to mention that in the original video, so I wanted to come out here and shoot that so I could clarify. School system. All right, so you're talking about somebody who was educated in Massachusetts, both for all the way through high school and then college at Northeastern. And then we moved down to Florida and had a daughter and put her into schools in Fort Lauderdale, and ultimately moved out of Broward County into Palm Beach County for the school system. There are areas of Palm Beach County that have phenomenal schools. This is not my opinion. This is the opinion of great schools. You can go onto their website and they're going to show you the rankings of schools, and it's going to show you where their great schools are. Some areas like Boca and Jupiter, they're very well known for having very good schools. I would encourage you to use a website like that to help in your search. You are more than welcome to call me and ask about my search as it pertains to me, and I can give you all the insight that I'm allowed to give on that. But here's my short version of it. If you're nervous about moving down here because you're nervous about the public school system and will your child be able to get a good education, I can't speak for you, I can speak for myself. Again, I chose to move to this county and to this town for the school system where my daughter is in, and we're very happy with it. All right, so look, there's a whole lot more that I could dig into and go through. I think this is good for today. So if you're considering moving from the Northeast down to Palm Beach County and you want to talk to somebody who did it and get their opinion, fill out the contact me form, email me, give me a call. Love to help you on your real estate search down here.